Hey everyone, my name is Anthony Trufanov. I'm one of the instructors at the Georgetown camp. I'm super excited to be working with all of you this summer. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the basic steps of setting up Verbatim if you don't have it, introduce you to some basics about how Verbatim works, and troubleshoot a couple of common things that go wrong with the installation process, so hopefully when camp starts we can hit the ground running and everything will already be working. There's also going to be a dedicated lecture early on in the camp where I fix people's problems individually. So if this installation process doesn't work for you, don't worry about it. We can fix your problems as they come up either in the lab or in that troubleshooting session. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to download the Verbatim software installer. So to do that, all you have to do is Google Verbatim debate. It'll be the first link. It'll be paperlessdebate.com. You should download the one that is appropriate for your operating system and then run it. You'll be asked if you want to give the app permission to make changes to your computer. You should click yes. You'll see a quick license agreement. Agree to it. You'll be presented with some components to choose from. You should select everything and hit install. So the installation process is really quick. So if everything has gone right, everything should already be working. So as you can see, there's a shortcut to a thing that is labeled Verbatim already on my desktop. Now, if I open a regular Word document, I'm not going to be presented with any Verbatim options. That's because the way that Verbatim works is it's a dedicated template on your computer in the same way that any other templates that you see when you create a new Word document work. So you're going to have to open the Verbatim template for you to be able to see any of the debate-specific changes. So we want to click on that. And as you can see, we're presented with this installation screen. So you generally don't want to make too many changes here. So we can leave all this stuff checked. Make sure to select that you are in high school. That matters for changing the default times for the timer that Verbatim has built in. And there's a word count calculator that uses that figure to determine if your speech is too long. So click high school and then hit next. You can ignore all this stuff for now. If your team has pads, say yes, and if you don't know what that is, then your team doesn't have pads. This step is super useful because it lets you send all of the cites from your documents directly to the wiki without opening the wiki page. But you can set that up later. It's not important for Verbatim to be functional. And then uncheck Launch Verbatim Tutorial, and then click Finish. So you'll see a little icon pop up that says the normal template was successfully verbatimized. I'll show you what that means in a second. So now that I've hit OK, I have a verbatimized document. So this is the kind of thing that you should be looking at. This general layout of options at the top, and a dedicated debate tab. So you'll notice if I click on Home, so this is what the options menu for a normal Word document looks like. And you'll notice there's a new button over here which says Verbatimize. So if you're in a document that does not have the Verbatim template applied to it, that button will also appear there. And the function of that button is that if you open a document that's not verbatimized and you click that button, the Verbatim template will automatically be applied to that document. And what that does is Verbatim has a variety of basically presets for how it formats a variety of things, and it applies all of that formatting to your document. So it's super convenient. The first thing that I would do once you've installed it successfully is I would go to the Verbatim settings and make a couple of changes. So first, under the Format tab, Verbatim actually remembered all of my presets. So this is the formatting that I use for card cutting. But if you use a different font size or if you use a different font for any of this stuff, then you can make those changes here. And that way, even if somebody else formats differently than you, as long as you're both opening it within Verbatim, you will be able to see your formatting even in their documents, because you've set that as the default in the Verbatim settings. The other change that I would make is under the Admin tab. So you'll see some options over here that say suppress installation checks and suppress .doc check. So I would click yes on these. That deals with some error pop-ups that don't really come up for me, but that I've seen come up occasionally for some people that aren't really impactful and you can always click through them, but they're kind of annoying, and if you open a new document, you don't want them to bother you every single time. Click save, and that will update the verbatim settings. So theoretically, if everything went well, you should be all set. So a common error that happens for some people is that for some reason, Verbatim doesn't always install the Verbatim template to the correct folder. So what this error would look like if it happened to you is you would run the installer, and then a Verbatim shortcut would not appear on your desktop, or when you attempted to open Verbatim in a document, you would not see any of the Verbatim tools pop up. You wouldn't see an installer or anything. It would just look like a normal Word document. What that means is that after the installer ran, it put the Verbatim template into a folder that is not the folder that your Microsoft Word looks at for its templates. So what you want to do to fix that is you want to figure out where the Verbatim installer put the template document, and you want to move it to the document folder that Microsoft Word uses for all of its templates. So the easiest way to do this is by installing a program called Everything Search. I already have it installed, but all you have to do to find it is Google Everything Search, and it'll be the first result. It's a website called voidtools.com. You can pick which installer you want to install, and once you run it, you have this program, Everything Search. So what you want to do is you want to find the debate template. The debate template is called debate, a period, and then DOTM. So you can see that mine installed correctly in the templates folder, but if it installed incorrectly, it would display the folder that Verbatim installed the debate template to. And so what you want to do then is you want to right click on debate.m and then hit open path. And what that does is it opens the folder that Verbatim installed debate.m to. Now you want to find your templates folder. In this case, this is my templates folder, but in your situation, if you're having this error, those are two different folders. So you want to find the templates folder. To do that, you would use Everything Search again, and you want to type in normal.dotm and do the same thing. Right click on it and hit open path. Normal.dotm is the path, or is the template that is used for normal Word documents. So if you click new Word document, it would open with a normal.dotm template. So doing that did nothing for me because I already have the templates window open, but theoretically if I had these windows open side by side now, all you would have to do is take debate.m, move it from one of those folders to the other, and then you should repeat all of those steps that I talked about before. Just open a Verbatim document, go through the installer process, and you should be all set to go. All right, so now that we've kind of gone through the process of installing Verbatim, let's talk about what Verbatim can actually do. So Verbatim has a lot of really neat tips and tricks that are useful for a variety of purposes. So the first reason why you want to install Verbatim and what you want to use Verbatim for is formatting. Verbatim has a variety of useful formatting tricks, and the first kind of area of this is in organization. So Word has built-in headers, but Verbatim has some built-in structures for how you can use formatting to organize your files. So if you press F4 on your keyboard, or if you press this button over here, that'll create a pocket. If you press F5, that'll create a hat. If you press F6, that'll create a block. And if you press F7, that'll create a tag. And so you'll notice several things. So as I've done this, first, each of those levels was formatted differently because Verbatim has a shortcut built in that whenever I press that button, it'll apply a certain set of formatting standards. But it also did something in the navigation pane over here. And if you don't see the navigation pane, then you can either click this button right here, Nav, or you can go to View and make sure that Navigation Panel is checked right here. But as you can see in the navigation pane, now there's some substructure to our document. So you can see that the tag is under the block, which is under the hat, which is under the pocket. And if I were to have multiple blocks, and multiple tags, you can see that my blocks are at a higher level than the tags are. And what that enables me to do is I can now collapse the navigation panel to heading level 3, for example, and now all of the tags won't be shown in the navigation panel, it'll just show me what the blocks are. And then I can expand each of the individual blocks to see which ones of the tags are actually underneath that. So, first major use of verbatim formatting is for organization. The second major use of verbatim formatting is for formatting cards and cutting cards. So, you've probably seen a lot of examples of people cutting cards that just try to imitate the look of a card, but then when it opens up on somebody else's computer, it looks kind of weird. That's because they're not using the proper verbatim formatting. So verbatim has several styles of format that it can use to help you format cards more consistently and effectively. So the first type is cites and dates. So for cites and dates in a cite, you want to use F8. It looks exactly like bold, but it's not the same as bold. And the reason that matters is because if you ever want to delete all of the text that is in a document that is not relevant to what you're going to read, you're going to want to delete anything that's bolded but that isn't a cite. So by making those things look distinct, you can make sure that all of the formatting that works within verbatim and all of the shortcuts that verbatim takes to streamline your process work as they're supposed to. So when you're citing or when you're putting a date, you should use the F8 format for that. And the way that that would work in practice, for example, is, let's say if I'm cutting a card about economic decline. At this point, my entire site is bold. I don't want that. So I'm going to get rid of all of the formatting using the F12 key, and then I'm going to highlight the last name and the year, and I'm going to use the F8 key on it. So making a site, simple as that. Now we want to tag. So we've already talked about the tags. So remember, we have a shortcut for tag formatting that makes it appear in the navigation panel. So we press the F7 key and we tag it economic decline causes nuclear war. And you'll notice that this tag appears in our navigation panel. I like to retain paragraph integrity when I'm cutting cards, but if you don't care about that, Verbatim has a super nifty tool that you can use to condense all of the paragraphs. And the way that you would do this is in settings, make sure that when you hit condense, you do not retain paragraphs. And then all you have to do is select everything and then press F3 for condense. And what that does is it gets rid of all of the returns, and it makes it so that your entire card appears as one paragraph. I don't like to do that, but that's just a matter of personal preference for me. So I have all of my stuff in my document. So many of you probably go through this and select text and then press Ctrl-U, which is the shortcut for underlining. And that makes the card look fine on your computer, but when somebody else opens it, the way that they're going to see that is not going to be the way that their verbatim is configured. It's just going to be whatever formatting you used on your computer. And so their card might look ugly, their card might look broken. So what you want to do is you want to make sure to use the verbatim formatting so that whenever you send somebody else a card, it appears exactly as was intended, exactly as they've configured it on their computer. So how do you do this? So Verbatim has some shortcuts for several types of card formatting. Type 1 is underlining, which is F9. Type 2 is emphasis, which is F10, and it appears either as bold or as this box thing, depending on how you configured the format over here. And you can tell based on the way that I'm processing this that it doesn't just look at what you've selected. So if I just put my cursor on a word and press one of these buttons, it will apply that formatting to the entire word. So keep that in mind. And then the last type of formatting that is available here is called highlighting. So highlighting isn't actually any different than going through and highlighting this way, so it isn't as important that you highlight using the verbatim function. But if you want to do that using verbatim, you can just select some text like this, and then press F11. The last thing that verbatim is super good at that is super helpful is after you've finished processing a card. So let me process this real quick. Alright, so now that I've underlined or emphasized the entire card using the verbatim shortcuts, I can now small size the parts of the card that I don't care about. So to do that, all you need to do is select all of the text that you want to small size and then press Control 8. And as you can see, what that does is it takes all of the text that you haven't underlined or emphasized and it makes it much smaller so that the irrelevant text doesn't get in the way of the judge's comprehension. You can do this multiple times if you want the text to go even smaller. Or if you want, you can select parts of a card and make those parts smaller than the rest of the card. This card's pretty short, so I wouldn't probably do that here, but if I had a much longer piece of evidence, I would consider shrinking down the parts that skip over a lot of text that I don't underline. Now that we've talked about how to use verbatim for formatting, let's get into how you can use verbatim to streamline your actual debating. So, you've probably heard of verbatim's functionality for assembling speech docs. So, at the most basic level, this works like this. So let's say I'm in my debate, and I need to put together a 2AC block. So what you want to do is, in this section of the screen over here, you want to select which speech you're in, and a new document will open, and it'll prompt you to save something with a conventional name. So I'm just going to toss it into my downloads folder. Okay. So what this has done is it's created a new document. It's named it exactly what it's supposed to be. And it has designated that document as the speech document for all of your other verbatim windows. What that does is it creates a shortcut that enables you to send anything from any document into your speech document without using copy-paste. So it's much, much faster. So the way that you can do this is if you have your two windows side by side, let's say I need to give my 2AC, and the neg has read the leaks disadvantage. So I'm going to go down to the leaks disadvantage 2AC. I'm going to make sure that my cursor is in the header, because the way that this shortcut works is it sends over everything that is under the header that your cursor has selected. And then I'm going to press the tilde button. The tilde button is the little dash underneath the little squiggly that's right underneath your escape key. And as you can see, in one click, verbatim has sent over the leaks disad. Now, this 2AC is a little short because this 2AC is chopped up into lots of pieces, so I'm probably going to want to send over some other stuff. So let's say that the neg has read an intelligence cooperation impact. So I'm going to press tilde again, and if you click over here, you can see that the intelligence cooperation impact is over here. Maybe they also read the criminal penalties counterplan. Maybe they read the courts counterplan. Maybe they read topicality, including saying that the FBI is not topical. And maybe we want to read a tyranny add-on. So as you can see, in the exact order that I sent everything over, well, okay, so this actually is a common mistake that people make, and I was a little bit sloppy here. But so the thing to know about how it assembles the speech document is that it sends over stuff to wherever your cursor is. So if you have your cursor in the middle of the document, when you press the tilde key, it's going to send stuff to the middle of the document. So here I had my cursor in between the leaks this head to EC and the impact answers, so it sent everything to the middle of those. But we can move that back, no harm, no foul. And then everything else, you can see, got sent over perfectly, and we didn't use copy-paste, and it was much faster. Sometimes the speech doc assignment process doesn't work properly, and Verbatim doesn't recognize what you want to make the speech doc. So the way to fix that, if that happens to you, is you can go up here, and you can hit Choose Speech Doc. And then you'll see a list of all the documents you have open, and you're going to want to select the speech document that you have created and hit Choose Doc. And that will designate the speech document that you've created as your speech document in the event that the normal Verbatim process didn't work effectively. Another nifty tool that Verbatim builds in is a window arranger. So you can see that I've already arranged my windows in a particular way that I find to be useful, which is all of the windows that I'm working from are on one side and my speech document is on the other side. The reason that's helpful is because this tilde functionality is really useful, but I personally really want to see when I send something over, I want to be able to click on my document and confirm that it's there, because otherwise I have no confidence that the process is working. So I just have the documents side by side, and that way, if I click tilde a couple times, after I've done that, I can click over to my speech doc and just double check that everything has worked as it's intended to work. And Verbatim makes this super easy. So if you just click on this button, which is called Window Arranger, or if you do the shortcut Control-Shift-Tab, let me just mess up my windows so you can see exactly what this does. So I have my windows messed up, and then I hit Control-Shift-Tab, and Verbatim automatically arranges your windows so that on one side you have all of your documents that you're sending stuff from, and then on the other side you have your speech document. So that's a really nifty tool that you can use within the actual debate. To wrap this up, there are a few things that I want to mention about technology that will be useful for you to have for camp in general. So many of you have already had some experience with either online classes or with online debates specifically, and some of you probably haven't. So the key things to know on this front are that the quality of your sound and the quality of your video are obviously way more important and under way higher strain when you're giving a speech than when you're just doing a low intensity and low speed video call. Because people talk faster, there's more information that is lost whenever sound drops off, so there's much more of a premium on making sure that you have a stable internet connection. And so there's a couple of ways that you can make sure that your sound and video quality, as well as your internet quality, are the highest that they can possibly be. First, with respect to the internet. If possible, it's better to use an Ethernet connection. An Ethernet connection is a specific type of cable that connects your computer to your modem via a wire. And using a wire is always going to be faster than using Wi-Fi. So if at all possible, if you can get close to your modem and you can use an Ethernet cable in order to connect to the internet, that method is preferable. If you can't use an Ethernet cable because you have no Ethernet port on your computer, there are many relatively cheap adapters that you can purchase that will change Ethernet to USB, which is also going to be faster than Wi-Fi. If you can't do that, then at the very least it's a good idea to minimize the distance between your computer and your modem, and also minimize the physical obstacles between your computer and your modem. So being in the same room is a huge improvement because there are going to be less walls in the way. If you're in the same room, being closer to your modem rather than farther away from it is important. If you have a multi-level house, being on the same floor as the modem is likely going to be better than being on a different floor than your modem. And so a lot of this is going to be specific to your particular setup. So you're going to want to experiment a little bit because it's better to figure out all this stuff at the front end than have internet issues derail a bunch of practice debates and derail a bunch of debating that we could be doing. So do your best to figure it out at the front end. We'll, of course, try to help you out as much as we can with this process. But whatever you can figure out on your own is going to be super helpful in this process going forward. With respect to audio and video quality, we recommend that you have some kind of external microphone and some kind of external camera if possible, although an external microphone is more important than an external camera. So For an external microphone, there are many different cheap options that you can use that you can set up on your desk. Also, clip-on mics are a good option. That's those little tiny mics that you can clip onto your clothes. And so those are going to pick up your voice better than the built-in microphone in a computer. And lastly, you can use a gaming headset. Since that has the microphone directly in front of your mouth, it's going to have a very consistent ability to pick up your voice, and it's not going to fluctuate in the same way that your computer picking up the microphone is going to. With respect to video, it can be kind of difficult to get a webcam. They're in pretty high demand right now for obvious reasons. And one way that you can improve your video quality without using a webcam that is a dedicated external webcam is you can install an app on your smartphone. If you have an Android or an iPhone, there are many different apps that you can use that can transform your phone into a webcam. And if you can connect your phone to your computer via USB, then you can use the camera on your phone, which is much better than the camera on your computer, and you can improve your image quality that way. That's actually how I'm recording this video right now. I have my phone set up on a tripod, and it's connected to my computer via USB. I have an Android, so I use an app called Irion Webcam. In iPhones, there are apps that are called different things, but they perform equivalent functions, so you should look into that and try to figure out something if possible. But again, video not as important as the sound. As long as we can get the sound working, we can hear what you're saying, and that's the most important part. So make sure that you get some kind of hardware solution for that, if at all possible. The last thing that you can do to make this process go smoother on the tech side is try to become familiar with some of the platforms that we're going to be using to communicate with you over the course of these coming weeks. So one platform we're going to be using a lot is Slack. So you probably are at least generally aware of what Slack is. It's kind of a group messaging program that allows people to use channels, to organize into topics of discussion, and it's generally just a way for large groups of people to communicate with each other and coordinate what they're doing. So we think that that's a really good tool for labs to use, so we're going to be using that. If you want to play around with Slack a little bit, try to figure out how it works, that would be helpful for getting you up to speed a little bit quicker. We're also going to be using Canvas for managing assignments. Canvas is a web service that a lot of schools use. You might even use it at your school. We're mostly going to be using Canvas for relatively limited stuff. We're going to send out some announcements. We're going to put our files up there. The starter pack is on Canvas. So the more that you can get yourself familiar with generally how Canvas works, the smoother our transition to that is going to be. The last thing that you want to try out before day one of camp is Zoom. So Zoom is the platform that we're going to be using for video conferencing. So you've probably already used Zoom or you've probably already heard of it. It's something like the video chat function in Google Hangouts, or you might have used Skype, but it's a little bit more feature-rich, it's a little bit more classroom-friendly. It enables us to do some fancy stuff like breaking up into groups and moving in between them. So that's the platform that we've chosen. So you should play around with Zoom a little bit, try to become familiar with some of its settings. Most of that is going to be controlled on our end, but the more that you know how the Zoom process works, how you log on to a meeting, how you get connected, how you make sure that your sound is working or your video is working, the smoother it's going to go. Before I wrap this up, I wanted to leave you with a couple of concluding thoughts about this summer in general. This summer is going to be challenging for all of us, more so than the typical debate camp experience is. Debate camp is already pretty demanding. It takes a lot of work to succeed and to get everything that you can out of the debate camp experience. And all of that is only more true in the digital context because there's no one to keep you accountable but you. It's not like a normal camp where we can organize into a research session and everybody's in the same place doing work. What you get out of these next couple of weeks basically depends on how much you are willing to commit and how much you're willing to put into all of this. So we are going to do our very best to meet you exactly how far you want to go and try to push you further and encourage you to take risks and expand your debate horizons. But in order for any of that to work, it requires everybody's active participation. Part of it is that we're all learning as we go. So to some extent, we also are relatively inexperienced at using this digital medium to communicate information to you. And so the more everybody is on the same page about this stuff, and the more everybody's actively contributing to making this camp experience go smoothly and work effectively, the better all this is going to turn out, the more useful and fun it's going to be for you, and the more you're going to learn. Thanks everyone for listening, and I really look forward to meeting all of you in the next couple of days.